Measuring personalities. So to have a better understanding of personality measurement, we will need to have a better understanding of two dimensions under personality measurements. First one is a stability, another one is situations. So stability means the trait ABC that we're trying to measure, whether that targeted ABC like affects or behaviors or personality cognitions are changing over time or not. So if a measurement taps it on trait, which means core and typical responses, then they do not specify a time frame. However, if they measure state, personality, which is more situational specific ABC, then the questionnaire itself defines certain time. Last 2 weeks, or last few days, or 2 days, 3 days, or even they could ask you right now, what do you think? Right now, how do you feel? That's the stability, which taps it on trait or state. Another dimension that you will need to understand is the situations, breadth of a situation. So there are some measures, general measures, which means there is no situation defined. So generally, how do you feel? Generally, how do you think? That's the one type of measurement. Another type of measurement is domain specific, or sometimes it can be task specific. So the measurement define the settings, like in school, in sports, or even more imminent, like before competition, after competition, before game, before practice, after practice, etc. So combination of these two components, which are stability and situation, generates different types of measurements. So the question is, why it's important to understand different measurement method in terms of stability and breadth like that? You know what? It's related to the philosophy in your leadership. So depending on which approach you take here, trait approach, situation approach, interactional approach, or phenomenological approach, under your leadership as a foundational philosophy, you have to find the right tool to understand your followers. As an example, if you use a trait approach, of course, you need to find the questionnaires, tools that taps it on core and typical responses of our personalities. If you take a situational approach as your philosophy, for the leadership, then you need to find something state measures or situation specific measures. I hope that you understand that. Assuming that you got that concept, let me move on with the examples here. Here, this is a profile of mental health model, POMS. It's called POMS, and it measures 6 different emotions. We will talk about this measurement a little bit later, along with research findings. However, when you look at this questionnaire up here, based on the instructions, is it trait measure or state measure? Is it general measure or domain specific? What did you say? How do you feel in general? So it's basically general measure, right? How about trait and state? Does it have a time specific there? No, exactly. So this is a trait measure and general measure. How about the next one? State anxiety test, test CSAI2, which we will play with a little bit more in the next topic. Based on the instructions here, is it state measure or trait measure? What does it say? Does it have a time frame? Yes, right here. Right now, how do you feel? So it's a state measure. Now, in terms of a situation, is it general measure or domain specific? Domain specific. Why? It asks the questions where? Within the sports, even right before competition. So this is really state measurements. How about the next one? Beliefs about cause of sports success in sports. Let's just start with the trait and state. Trait measure or state measure? it's a trait because it doesn't have time specific. How do you feel? But then in terms of a situation, is it general or situation specific, domain specific? Domain specific. Why? It says in sports. So trait measured in a certain domain. That's the measurement. And I'm going to skip this one, but the last one here. This measurements is very quite interesting. It's multi-steps. First one, the measurements ask how often players experience over-arousal, performance worries, distractions, low confidence, and frustration, negative emotions in sports, which is domain specific. And then they ask first, how often did you feel these feelings? Then move on to the next step. This experience, did it hurt, very debilitative, or did it help, facilitative? It asks interpretation of their experience. What approach is this? Phenomenological approach. And they collect the data in terms of what they have experienced, but what they do with it, right? And then this one becomes their data in their understanding of relationship between performance and the emotions.